I'm giving out one bet for every single fight this week at Dana White's Contender Series Week 1. We are back, boys. We absolutely crushed it all season long last year. This is my favorite part of the year, August. We get every single Tuesday. Most Saturdays, we're getting fights. A lot going on. It's going to be a lot of fun. We crushed the other night at UFC Vegas 109. 7 plays hit, 5 of those being plus money. Look, if you're not watching the show, I don't know what you're doing. You're missing out. There's tons of people giving predictions and picking winners. I'm giving out one bet for every single fight on every single card. So I want to get straight into it. This one's going to be a lot shorter than the normal shows just because there's 5 fights. And, these can be really unpredictable. You kind of got to get creative if you want to make some money on this show because underdogs are smacking. It's hard to find a true line for these odds makers when it comes to some of these fighters because they're fighting low levels of competition. And then they get here and they're, on a more equal playing field. So it gets interesting. There's good money to be made. Let's jump right into it. First fight on the card, Christopher Ewert versus Yuri Panferov. And, right away you're going to notice that Panferov lost to Torres Finney. Yes, Torres Finney gets wins. And we've seen him win in the UFC barely by holding the guy against the cage. He submitted Yuri Panferov. And that's just, I don't know, man. It's a little bit of a red flag to me just because, Torres Finney, if you can stuff his takedowns for one, he's going to get a little bit tired. He has no striking. He was actually hitting Panferov with some pretty decent shots. Didn't really like to see that whatsoever. And, Panferov has fought at higher weight classes before. The guy's a big guy, but sometimes looks to be a little bit out of shape. And, I don't think his cardio is the best by any means. And I think at this level, he's going to be very reliant on getting the fight to the ground and using his jiu-jitsu to get into dominant position. And that's really how he's got to win fights. Christopher Ewert on the other side, if his name rings a bell, he was supposed to fight Jackson McVeigh on a card in June. What was it, UFC 317? I believe it was. I believe that was the card. And it fell through because he missed weight by 10 pounds. And everybody talked about how the UFC cut him. Well, the reason they cut him was so they could bring him back onto this show, which he was originally supposed to be on. Now, Christopher Ewert, from a skill standpoint, he's a bit of a brawler, decent striking. He doesn't have massive power where he's going to go out and starch guys. But, for this big of a weight class, he's got decent cardio. He can push a pace. And if he can just stuff takedowns, man, I think he's really going to wear down Panferov with the striking, with the body kicks, and all of that stuff. Just the question is, can he stuff the takedowns? I don't think his grappling is phenomenal or his wrestling defense is phenomenal by any means. But I do think he'll be able to work himself back up. I believe he's a strong guy. As long as he doesn't get submitted in round 1, I think Christopher Ewert is going to put it on him with the striking. And right now the line isn't crazy. So you're getting Christopher Ewert minus 142. That's what I'm going to go with in the first fight, just because I don't like relying on a guy who's got one path to victory here, and that's going to be his jiu-jitsu. So, yeah, man, we're going Christopher Ewert. That's going to be the very first play for the first fight to kick off Dana White's Contender Series. Now, second fight on this card is a banger as well, because you're getting a guy out of Australia or New Zealand who's the number 1 ranked featherweight over in that region of the world. He's 7-0. He's shown to be super skilled. He's actually super young, too, at only 21 years old. I'm talking George Mangos, and he's taking on Radley da Silva. Radley da Silva is a Brazilian guy that is fighting out of Canada in the BFL, which if you know anything about the BFL and the Canadian regional scenes, there's not great levels of competition. And this guy, if you watch him, you can tell he's very skilled, especially in the striking department. The guy throws a lot of spinning kicks. He's been able to take down some of these bums and find submissions on them. But I think against a guy like George Mangos, Radley da Silva is going to have to keep it on the feet. That's where he's going to want this fight because I think he's going to be a tad faster. And, he's unpredictable. He throws a lot of spinning kicks. We saw that massive spinning knockout he landed, spinning kick knockout, which was insane. But again, against lower level competition, George Mangos fighting out of Hex in Australia, which is a good promotion. There just seems to be a lot of talent over there right now, man. There's been 14 fighters on the Contender Series from either Australia or New Zealand, and 10 of those fighters have earned contracts. And we're talking about guys like Jack Della Maddalena, who's the welterweight champ, Carlos Olberg, and just last season alone, Navajo Sterling, Cody Haddon, Keelan Salkild, and Jonathan Mikulev. So they're producing talent. And I think George Mango is another one of those talents, if I'm being honest. I do like the fact that he can strike a little bit. He's got a bit of power, but his wrestling is good. His top control is very good. He's a good back taker, and his jiu-jitsu is solid. And with Radley, if he's throwing these spinning attacks, I think he's going to leave himself open to getting his back taken. And once he does, he's athletic. He can get out of it. But for how long? I think the longer this fight goes and George Mangos keeps implementing the wrestling, I think it's going to slow down Radley da Silva and take away some of that explosiveness. And from there, I think George Mango can really open up with his own striking, but also his wrestling and grappling attacks. So for those reasons, second play on the card, I'm taking the Australian or the New Zealander, George Mangos minus 130. That is going to be the official play. In the next fight, Baysangur Susurkaev versus Murtaza Talha. All right, absolutely butchered that. We're going to call him Baysangur. So Baysangur is a minus 310 favorite on the books right now. And this is a guy who's trained with Hamzat. This is a guy, if you look at the picture of him and Hamzat next to each other, he's bigger than Hamzat. Like, this dude is pretty stout for this division. He's very... let me just talk about his opponent first. Murtaza Talha was on the Contender Series and gets knocked out by Rodolfo Bellato. Okay, if you saw Bellato against Paul Craig, the guy just does not seem to be high level for the UFC standards. And to go out there and knock out Talha, I mean, Bellato has a little bit of power, but he's more of like a pace guy, and he's going to throw these short shots, and he's not going to go away and kind of fight that junkyard dog style. Whereas Talha has power in the hands, he can grapple a little bit, but he's so stiff in his movements, it seems like, and he's there to be hit. And going against Baysangur, this guy is very, very fluid on the feet, and he's got some swagger about him. And he can strike with the best of them. He's very powerful. He uses his kicks very, very well. Throws some knees up the middle. But if you want to go the grappling with him, he can get taken down. This dude is Chechnyan, man. He's fighting with Hamzat in the gym every day. He's with all these Dagestani and Russian guys as well. This guy can wrestle too, and is defensively, he's going to know how to get back up to his feet. I also think Talha is a bit of a gas bag. Like, this guy is going to get tired if he tries the grappling, and if he doesn't, he's probably going to be there to get hit on the feet. I mean, everything's pointing to Baysangur Susurkaev for the pick, obviously, but I think he finishes this fight. If Bellato's out there knocking you out, I think Baysangur can too. Maybe it's one big knockout shot early, or maybe it's an attritional thing where Talha just gasses, and this guy is a very crafty and creative striker to where he might have you hurt, and he's going to rip the body, get your hands to drop, and he's just going to finish you off. So yeah, I'm going Baysangur Susurkaev for the pick by finish. That's going to be the official bet for this play. I like that one a lot. I'm really excited to see Baysangur too. I think he's going to be a stud. All right, co-main event, Ty Miller, Jimmy Drago. Ty Miller is a good striker. If you watch him, he's very patient. He has a very, very good jab. He's kind of low volume, but it's because he's accurate and he's picking his shots. And you can tell he's just a very, very technical striker. And, that's worked wonders for him so far on the regional scene. He's 5-0. He doesn't have a ton of experience, but this guy's fighting in the LFA. That's obviously a good promotion before the UFC. The guys he's fighting are, 4-2, 4-1, 3-3. So, he's not fighting 0-1, 0-2, 5-10 guys or anything like that. The guy has shown, he can fight a full 15 minutes. I think he's got decent cardio. I think his striking, it can be powerful. More of a boxing style compared to Jimmy Drago, who, Jimmy Drago throws with some heat. This guy seems to have good cardio as well. And he just seems to have more grit to him. Like, he's going to do more in the octagon. He's not going to sit there and just have a pretty boxing match with you until maybe he finds the knockout or just outpoints you. This guy's going to throw nasty elbows. He's going to throw basically the kitchen sink at you. And at the last second, he's going to duck under, look for takedowns. And, he's pretty good with that. He's pretty good with his wrestling as well. And if you watch him on the regional scene, he gets a lot of his finishes come early, but, he's just kind of overwhelming these guys with, his pace, putting guys up against the cage. Like I mentioned earlier, throwing these elbows. The guy is nasty. The one deficiency I've really seen in his game is, he's been submitted once. If he gets taken down, he spends a little bit of time on his back, or at least he has in a couple of fights. But, here against Ty Miller, I don't think he's going to have to worry about that. If anybody's implementing the grappling, I really do think it's Jimmy Drago. For me, though, I mean, if Ty Miller comes out here and knocks Drago out, I'm not going to be shocked. But if this thing lasts 15 minutes, I fully expect Jimmy Drago to be the one doing more during the fight, throwing more, probably landing more, and just mixing in all mixed martial arts. And, as an underdog here, Jimmy Drago's got a cool story too. A former addict, down on life, kind of has this turnaround, bounce back story that a lot of people are behind him on. And, it seems like he's fighting for a lot too. Ty Miller, I'm going to see how old Ty Miller is. I feel like he's one of the people on this show that's really young. Okay, he's 25 years old, so he's not extremely young. He's not a George Mangos or anything who's 21. 25 years old. Jimmy Drago, been around the block a little longer at 30. Drago's got 9 fights and a no contest, so 10 total fights, compared to only 5. Got a little bit more experience too. I'm going to take the grit, man. I'm going to take the underdog story as the underdog. It's going to be my first underdog I'm taking on this season. I'm going to get Jimmy Drago at plus 140. I think there's a little bit of value there just because he's going to do a little bit more. So that's the play on this fight. And now we get the main event. Ilian Bouafia taking on Neemias Santana. This one's interesting, and it makes me nervous for Bouafia because, Neemias is a guy who you watch his style of fighting and it just screams that he's going to gas out, right? Because he'll hit you once and he just goes, he goes ape shit. He's a brawler. He wants to get in there and trade with you. He doesn't mind getting hit. He has great power. Southpaw as well. Against the guy like Bouafia, I think the only problem with Santana here is that he's going to be like 6 inches shorter. He's going to have a big reach disadvantage. And Bouafia is a guy who likes to make fights pretty. And I could see that frustrating a guy like Santana here. I mean, Bouafia is a guy who's going to circle around the cage. He has a very technical kickboxing type of style. Can't talk tonight. He's going to kick your legs, rip to the body. And he's very good with that. He's got he's got power too, but I think the thing that sets him apart is how accurate he is. He might be a little bit low volume at times, but he's waiting for that one shot, and he's waiting to until you make one mistake, and he's going to counter you. He throws good combinations off of your counters, and I like that from him. Does he deserve to be the favorite? I think he does. I think he's the better, more polished fighter, but at minus 245, we're talking about the Contender Series here for one, and Santana is a guy that you can just tell can knock anybody out, and once he gets you hurt, he's not going to stop till he finishes it. But ultimately, I do think, Santana being that wild against the guy this technical, I think the wildness and the brawling style and the power works out for Santana a lot of the times. But when a guy is so accurate and so much longer, it's going to take Santana overextending or, blitzing in to try to get to him with this reach disadvantage. And I think that's when Bouafia is going to be able to strike. And that's when he's going to be able to use that accuracy to hurt this guy and probably put him away. But can't count out Santana, so I'm going to cover both sides here. I'm not taking either guy. I'm going to take this fight to end by finish. I'm waiting for that line to come out. It's probably going to be a little chalky because we're talking about two guys that are big and have some power, but I think that's a very probable play. Put it in a parlay, whatever it is. This fight to end by finish is going to be my official play for the main event on week 1 of Dana White's Contender Series. So appreciate you guys being here. I'm going to crush this show just like we've been crushing the UFC shows. Shout out to the sponsor of the show, BetUS, a book you can use in 49 of the 50 states. They're also, I believe, the first book, if not one of the first books to have Dana White's Contender Series lines in the past week. They're up early, so if you want a book where you can get in on these early lines, BetUS is going to be linked down below in the description. Official sponsor of the Parlay MMA One Bet Show. Go check them out. Go get signed up, lock in, and make some money. If you want to get all of my plays, you can do so by going to winnable.com/HOF picks and use code Dana if you're a new user to get a 5-day free trial, get all of our plays for free, get some of our UFC bets for UFC 319, which is a massive card. Again, winnable.com/HOF picks. I think we're going to blow this show up this year, especially going Tuesdays, Saturdays. Going to be putting out more YouTube content. I appreciate you all being here every single week. We're growing the channel. We're growing the show. The views are staying steady. We're going to get to that next level. Again, thank you guys so much. Let's cash these bets once again for Dana White's Contender Series, and I'll see you all in just a couple of days for UFC 319.